Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optics Podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm accompanied by my partner in film, Devin. And today we're here to present our review of the remake. What's technically it's a remake, but it's based off of the Broadway version of Mean Girls. We are taking it back to North Shore High, which is insane. 20 years later, Devin. 20 years later.
Yeah, we got a couple 20-year anniversaries this week.
We do.
Popped up.
Drake and Josh. What else turned 20 my God. There's been a few, there's a few other things and I can't remember what it was, but I know the Drake and Josh premiere was 20 years ago today, as of recording January 12th, 2024. So that's pretty cool. I never thought about that. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, there's a lot of things turning 20 this year, which is, showing Devin and I's age a little bit more so mine than Devin. He's a few years younger, shy than me, but you're never too late to go back and visit your friends for a high school reunion, which is kind of like what this is for us, this film, Mean Girls. You know, it came out in 2004, and I just can't believe it's actually been 20 years. Didn't really think that we were going to get to this point, but here we are. And as I mentioned before, this film it's a remake, like we mentioned, but it's more so based on the Broadway version of Mean Girls, which I believe came into existence around 2016, 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So it hasn't been too long since the Broadway version. So it's been about almost 6 years since the Broadway version has hit Broadway altogether.
I was actually looking at the IMDb page, and apparently there was a Mean Girls 2 that was a TV movie that came out in 2011.
You know what? That does sound familiar. It sounds very familiar, and I think I might have not purposely blocked from my memory, but like I think I saw that at some point, and I was like, this is really dumb. And then I just never looked at it. Let me look this up. Mean Girls 2.
There's only one character that's in all three movies.
Is that Tina Fey?
Nope. Close.
Is it Mr. Duval, Tim Meadows?
Yes, it is. Good old Tim.
Oh, you know what? Oh my gosh. This looks TV movie. Yeah, 2011. Yeah, this poster looks familiar.
It has like these people that were on Disney Channel, I think.
Yep, the plastics are back. Yeah, I don't know if I ever watched Mean Girls 2, but
I don't think we ever should.
I don't think we ever should either.
Based on these ratings.
Yeah, but you should definitely check out Mean Girls 2024, the remake, as what we're talking about here today, because it was phenomenal. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Devin, how have you been? What's going on in your life? Are you ready for Wildcard NFL weekend?
The new year. This is our first time recording in 2024. It's crazy. Or at least us together. I know you've done a little echo one-off.
Yeah, so technically we did Iron Claw. We recorded, that was technically last year. We recorded
it last year, yeah.
That's right, yeah. This is our first, congratulations. We made it, 2024. The podcast is still here.
We made it, just like the Steelers. We made it, barely.
Seriously, I keep harkening back to that one scene in Sonic the Hedgehog where Sonic goes through the live action Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one, where he's going through all these crazy fights and whatnot. And then who was it? The guy who was in the movie with him. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now. But he was like, "How are you still alive?" And then Sonic's like, "I have no idea." And that is exactly how I feel about the Steelers going into Wildcard Weekend 2024. I'm very nervous. I don't know what's going to happen because I think TJ Watt is still out, but I believe Gabe, someone from the Bills, are out. So I mean, it's going to be a tough battle, but they might be playing it in Cleveland depending on the weather.
Apparently, It's that bad in old Buffalo.
Oh yeah, like if anyone out there has ever watched or is a Bills fan, has been to like a Bills game in like the like peak of winter, like they definitely know like what's going on. Like I remember one year, I think the Bills were facing the Jets. It was a few years ago, and it was in Buffalo, and like it snowed like crazy. It's like you could barely see what was going on the screen. I was like, that is insane. Like we get a lot of snow, as in Cleveland, us Clevelanders, us Northeast Ohio people. But yeah, they get it 10 times worse. But where I am now, we barely get it, unfortunately. But there is rumblings of it might be snowing on Martin Luther King Day this year. So we shall see. But I do apologize, Devin. How have you been? Congratulations. We've made it to 2024 of the podcast. And it's our first, I think this is a good first movie for 2024. But how have you been? What's going on?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think you might have missed the memo and bailed out on me on Night Swim. We could have that as the first the first movie of 2024. I was left drowning in that mess.
Listen, I have a good explanation. I totally forgot that Night Swim, because I remember you saying that Night Swim was coming out, and it just totally just left my mind. Not purposely, just like indirectly. But because it's right, you got a screener. We didn't get a screener, and I thought about going, and then I just
Well, it was bad.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was really bad.
Anything you want to comment on it before we dive into Mean Girls here?
I don't know if you've ever seen Amityville Horror or any of those movies, but it's basically that in a pool.
Okay. I've never seen them, but I know of them. And I think I know. Yeah. So, because it looked so interesting, at least the
dad goes crazy because of the pool. And that sums it up.
Oh, okay.
It's a haunted pool.
Oh, wow. What's the motive? I mean, you can talk about it if you want to.
It's just really dumb.
Was there any motive behind the haunted pool, or was it just haunted for the sake of being haunted?
The haunted pool is the water is taken from a secret fountain of youth or something, and it heals whoever is in it, but you have to sacrifice somebody in order to keep it satiated.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I probably might still watch it later, like maybe spooky season 2024 this year. I'm not entirely sure.
It was not a good start for the newly formed Blumhouse collaboration with James Wan's company. I think it's called Atomic Monster.
Oh yeah, man. You know, there are some movies that are in January for a reason.
We didn't get a Megan this time. It was not a pleasant surprise like Megan.
Maybe this is our Megan of this year, because I was very surprised by this movie.
I mean, Megan and Mean Girls are pretty close if you rearrange the letters a little bit.
That is true. Maybe Paramount, because Megan is also, was that Universal or was that Paramount? I think that was Universal. I could be wrong. Maybe no, that was Blumhouse, wasn't it? I think it was. I think so.
Yeah, it was Blumhouse. I don't know who that's under.
Well, maybe that's the secret sauce to January. Just make sure that your movie starts with an M, and you might have a little bit more success.
An M and a 3, or an M and an E.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. But as we have mentioned before, this is going to be our review of Mean Girls 2024. Again, this is based off of the Broadway show, or based off the musical. If you guys haven't realized that, I don't know if they've done a lot of marketing into telling people it's a musical, unless you watch. If you watch the trailer, it's going to be like a musical-esque.
I don't think there's any musical moments in the trailer.
Because I saw Reneé Rapp, who plays Regina George. She sings the, my name is Regina George, that whole thing. Sorry, I can't sing with my pipes right now, but I thought that was in the trailer.
Yeah, it was an issue with both Wonka and Mean Girls, where I guess companies don't think that there's going to be an audience for musicals. They don't want you to know that it's a musical, so they're just hiding it from these movies.
Oh, Wonka was also a musical. Well, a secret musical.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's what you meant.
I mean, you never would have known from the trailers.
So I should still check it out. I do want to check it out. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I think Wonka was good.
Yeah, because I remember you saying that Wonka was like, you said that the trailers didn't do it justice, and you said it was a lot better than what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same type of story here, where the trailers don't show you anything about what the real movie is. Like studios are afraid to make musicals, but they keep making them. It's odd.
I'm all down for musicals. Like, I'm all for it. Yeah, I absolutely love it, but Devin already knows that. But as we mentioned, we're going to dive into our review of Mean Girls. We can't really call this a spoiler review or a non-spoiler review. It's just going to be a review of Mean Girls, because if you've already seen Mean Girls, 9 times out of 10, you're going to see this version and you already know what happens. It's kind of like The Empire Strikes Back. Everybody knows that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. That's like not even like a twist anymore. So all the events of Mean Girls are here in song form. And they add a few more extra little context here and there. They change a few small things up, but I think it's... Anyway, I think, for this version, it works well. But without further delay, we'll be right back after this introduction to our review of Mean Girls.
In 2004, we made the original Mean Girls. Get in, loser! Over the years, I've realized that these characters and this story have had a much longer shelf life than anyone anticipated.
Shut up! I didn't say anything.
20 years later, it's just as poppin' as it was when it came out. It's so iconic and so timeless.
It's become such a part of all of our lives.
Everyone knows the trio in pink.
Those bitches.
For this new movie, how can we surprise and delight people who are already familiar with the story? It felt like we could have the best of both worlds with great music.
This thing.
New jokes.
I can't even see it. Like a face breast.
And the look to be updated, but also nods to the original.
That is so fetch.
What is fetch?
It's like slang from an old movie.
They nailed the comedy.
I like your shirt.
Thanks. It smells like sausage from the last time I wore it.
All of these characters are familiar.
This fall, we will be getting into abstinence, condoms, and choking.
But there's some twists.
It's cool to see Mean Girls made for a modern day.
It's hot. It's smart and it's funny. And it's really cool.
I think people will be surprised.
And we are back with our review of Mean Girls. Again, 20 years later, which is crazy. The Mean Girls remake is here. Kind of came out of nowhere, almost. Like, there was a little bit of promotion for it. But then I feel like people kind of forgot about it because it is a January movie. And most January movies are often forgotten about. But not this one. And not Megan. Did Scream 6 come out in January, or was that February?
It was one of those.
It was one of those two. So I feel like the trend of every movie in January is bad is starting.
I thought we had broken the trend, but Night Swim kind of brought back old habits. I'm afraid that people are going to confuse Night Swim with Night House. Night House is an actual good movie, and Night Swim is not.
Is it really?
We reviewed Night House.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We did. Oh my gosh. So that was a freaky movie. Very freaky.
It looks like Scream 6 was March.
Okay, so it was March. For some reason, I thought it was in January or February, but okay, so that doesn't really count. Yeah. So yeah, we thought that the January quote unquote bad movies were broken, but there's still a few diamonds in the rough there. But as far as the casting info goes for Mean Girls, this movie was directed by Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr. and was written by the one and only Tina Fey and stars, I got this right, Devin, and I practiced for it. It's Angourie Rice, I should say, not angry. She is Australian. Did not know that at all.
Interesting.
So it is Angourie Rice, Reneé Rapp, Bebe Wood, and Tina Fey, just to name a few of the cast members. You have a few nice little returning members. Of course, Tim Meadows playing Mr. Duvall, John Hamm playing Coach Carr. And yeah, there's a few other little surprises in there as well. That's the only thing I will not give you guys. There's a few little surprise guests in there, but Jenna Fisher plays Miss Heron, which is Cady's mother, which was a nice touch. I think that was pretty awesome.
They actually looked alike. It was kind of like it actually looked like a mom and daughter. Like
yeah, realism, art imitating life, baby. That's what it's all about. But the synopsis is as follows: if you have never seen Mean Girls before, Cady Heron is a hit with the Plastics, an A-list girl clique at her new school, when she makes the mistake of falling for Aaron Samuels, the ex-boyfriend of Alpha Plastic Regina George. So, as we mentioned, it's hard to we can't really not spoil something that's been out for 20 years. So this is your spoiler warning if you have not seen it. But we are just going to give our initial reactions first, which is more so minor spoilers. So Devin, I'm going to pass it over to you so you can give your initial reactions to Mean Girls.
Yeah, I think going into this, no one really knew what to expect because kind of like you say, came out of nowhere, and you kind of catch wind that it's a musical, even though the trailer doesn't really show any of that. And that's, like I said, it's a trend that's becoming a thing, and it's kind of odd, but I guess it worked here and with Wonka because I enjoyed both those movies. I think it is very cool that we don't have to worry about spoilers because that means they kept the identity of the original movie. And I think without Tina Fey returning to write this one, I don't know if it would have worked because it definitely feels like Tina Fey's writing, like her comedic timing and her comedic chops are definitely all over this one. And it keeps that same core story from the first movie that what helped it become a cult classic back in the day. Like as soon as that came out, I feel like everyone was quoting it. Everyone knew it was going to be a hit. And it just kind of lasted up until now, and it's being continued with this movie. A lot of the songs I did enjoy, like you said, Regina George killed it, Reneé Rapp. Her songs were just like, I was getting like Mufasa vibes, like just evil the entire time.
Don't you mean Scar? Not Mufasa.
Well, yeah, Scar, that's what I meant. But yeah, I think the entire cast killed it, really. I was very pleasantly surprised when I did some research just now and found that this character is played by somebody who has a very famous voice that I did not know. I am going to attempt to say the name. The character's name was Janis, which is the kind of outsider crew that befriends Cady before she becomes a member of the Plastics, and the actress's name is Auli'i Cravalho, perhaps.
There you go. I think so. I think you nailed it.
But did you know who that is? I just found this out now.
Moana.
Yeah, Moana. I did not know that. That's why I was like, wow, she has a really good voice. Like, I wonder who she is, because she opens the movie for the most part with her first little intro into the story. And I was like, wow, she's really good, and she's just I think it feels like she had a bigger role in this one than the original Janis did. She definitely killed it. Definitely underrated part of the movie. And also, Karen Shetty is the new name, played by Avantika. She's a one name kind of star we got here. I think she was amazing as Karen. Every time she was on screen, people were laughing because she just played the perfect dumb Karen.
So, for when it came to my theater experience, I saw this yesterday at like 4:30 on a Thursday. It was like a super early showing. a lot of people are still at work. So there was about maybe 8 or 9 people in my theater. Most of them were a little bit older, but there was this girl sitting like a few chairs like down from me. Clearly she was a millennial because we were laughing at, like, we were the only two laughing in the entire theater. Not saying that the movie wasn't funny, but it's just like, you know, it, like you said, with Tina Fey writing this, like, you know, especially like with the original, like it felt right. Like this feels like a respectable and like a great remake of a wildly popular movie. Now, that's not saying that, you know, there's a lot of people online probably going to be talking about which version is better. But like you said, Devin, it's like they really didn't change much. Like there's a few extra details that you get between Regina George's character and Janis's character as to why they or how they necessarily, you know, split up from being friends, and a few other small key little details. But overall, like, you know, it is beat for beat, you know, word for word, bar for bar, the same as the original, but it does have that musical twist to it, which I think breathes new life into this movie. And as I mentioned before, you know, Mean Girls has been on Broadway since 2017, and the songs are very catchy. You know, like this really is just like, you know, the same catty type of movie
it's
as
Cady,
the
not Caddy.
Right. I was hoping you were catching on to that, but when it, you know, with it being that mean-spirited drama in high school to show how terrible high school can be in the new age, because they really they adapt this version of the film to fit for kids that are in high school today. 2024. So you see a lot of live stream, people tweeting, you know, YouTube, things of that nature. And you see how fast, even faster, the rumors spread around the school.
Don't even need a burn book.
Yeah, like half the time you don't even need a burn book, but like it's there for the sake of the story. But it's like, because I remember in the original, Regina George like made a bunch of like copies. I didn't get a chance to rewatch the original before watching this, but she made a bunch of copies of like pages within the burn book, and she spreads them all over the floor in the school. And she does like that iconic like stand, and she's just like watching the entire school burn. And this one, she just drops it on the floor and somebody just finds it, and then you just see how fast information just hits in this school at North Shore High. But I have to say, when it came to this new cast, like especially with Angourie Rice playing as Cady Heron, she nailed it. Like literally every single person in this role, in their roles, aside from the returning actors, everyone just they tried to make the role their own. So they didn't have to worry about acting like Lindsay Lohan or Rachel McAdams. Like the spirit of the characters are still there, but you know, everyone who reprised the role, like that was great. That was spot on. It's kind of like ushering. This is almost like a requel. Like we've talked about this before. You know what I mean? When it comes to like, it is the same story, but you do have legacy characters playing other parts or playing the same parts. And it's kind of ushering in Mean Girls for a new generation. But I really did enjoy the musical numbers. They push the story forward. And that is what I appreciated about it the most, is that it wasn't just like a stop, stand still. They do a musical number, has nothing to do with the plot. Like every single song moved the plot forward, which is what a musical is supposed to do. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do apologize. I've been on a bit of a rant, but I loved it. You know, it's funny. It's shot very well. The production was just on point. The writing is brilliant as always. You know, just adding a little bit more of a spin onto these characters. And you had Ashley Park. She was in this in this for a bit. She had a very small role as Madame Park, but everyone had fun with their own roles. And it seems like from the junkets that I've watched, it just seems that everyone here had a good time making this. And I think that's all that really matters, at least to me. But Devin, is there anything else you would like to add to this review of Mean Girls?
Yeah, as far as my theater experience, it was obviously an early screening for critics as well as I think it was a fan event. There was a lot of pink in the theater, so it was definitely a fun experience because everyone was eating it up. Everyone was laughing at every joke. There were a couple like awes at the emotional moments of the movie. Like you don't usually get that, but everyone was invested. A lot of pink. I did not wear pink, but it was also a Tuesday. If it were a Wednesday, now maybe I would have brought out the pink, but gotta follow the rules. Everyone else in the theater would have been kicked out of the plastics, but I would have been A-okay.
So I would have been safe within the plastics because I would not have, because I saw this on a Thursday and today's Friday. And on Fridays, that's when they wear sweats. I wore sweats on Thursday, and I think they wore skirts that day. I can't really remember, but
I might have worn sweats, but we're not going to talk about it.
It is what it is. The plastics don't really need to know. They're
like she said. Regina said herself. They're made up rules. They don't matter.
I love it how it's always just funny, even within the original or within this, with Rachel McAdams playing Regina George and of course Reneé Rapp taking over that role. And like I said, she did a great freaking job as like a new age bully for this film. But yeah, like Regina George is just like, oh yeah, they're just made up rules until she's kicked out of the plastics, and they're like, well, those rules have stayed around. They only apply to Regina George because she's the one who made them up, and it's like it's hilarious.
I really liked Regina George's songs too. Like I think hers definitely stood out the most. Obviously the Regina George song, and then there's that one song she did at the party where everyone like stopped moving and like time stopped. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, the Halloween one was great. And of course, Karen Shetty, she had a Halloween song as well, which
hers was fun.
Yeah, that was pretty cool as well. And then I loved Bebe Wood she plays Gretchen Wieners. She had a song, and I feel bad for Gretchen in the original, but like I felt even worse for her here.
Yeah, that's the thing about this one is like the musical elements can kind of bring out more of the drama and the emotion of the characters, like more so than just the comedic elements, because you kind of get them pouring their heart and soul out into the world, and then her character is very sad.
Yeah, and also you get these young actors playing these roles. These actors. Sorry, I'm 31. Like, oh my gosh, I should not be saying that. But these actors, a lot of them were probably born around like the early, like right before.
Yeah, these are all 2000s babies.
Yeah, 2000s kids. So like they were probably born around the time that the original Mean Girls came out, or a little bit right before. So it's like they also grew up with this film. But, us being a little bit older, I think I was 11 when this came out. So it's like that was kind of like a prime time-esque age. I didn't necessarily hit high school yet, but it's like, oh my gosh, is this what high school is going to be like type of thing? But I love how we're able to get a new perspective from new actors who are basically around the same age, or like, the human in human form around the same age as how old the original film came out, which I think is pretty cool to think about. It's just, it breathes new life into it. This is something I would definitely watch again. We don't necessarily have to talk about which one is better, because it's like, I feel like both are like, obviously like the original is always going, it's like, which is like the quote unquote better Peter Parker. It's like,
it comes down to, do you like musicals or do you not like musicals?
Yeah, that too. But I think there's obviously something to offer with this new version. The original always holds like a near dear place in my heart, because, Lindsay Lohan was like one of like the biggest actors back then, like 20 years ago. Not saying that she isn't anymore. It's just that, we saw her in a lot more projects back then, especially, Parent Trap, things of that nature. But yeah, I think there's a lot to offer here. I agree, Devin. I think it just depends on if people like musicals, because it's like a lot of people don't. But it's like, you have to think about like Lindsay Lohan. Like, she did Freaky Friday that came out in 2003. And then Mean Girls that came out in 2004. She did The Parent Trap in 1998. And it's like, she was just one of those like big actors in our time. And, hopefully maybe, like these actors are still young. Like, they're still getting on their, on the train to like picking up new projects, or projects they've already been in that I think people should check out. If you have not seen this, Reneé Rapp, and she was in the Sex Lives of College Girls. That's on Max. Definitely check that out. And Devin, I'm not sure if you watched this yet or not, but Mayor of Easttown.
I have not.
Angourie Rice, she's in that show. It's great because it has Evan Peters, Kate Winslet. You honestly cannot go wrong. It is fan-freaking-tastic.
I recognize her as Betty from Spider-Man.
Of course, yeah, and she was Betty from Spider-Man. Yeah, like Angourie has been, or excuse me, Angourie has been around. I keep saying Angourie. Angourie. Got to get that out of my head. Angourie, she has been around, for a while. Like, I think that was my first introduction to her as an actor was Spider-Man Homecoming. And then, she becomes Ned's girlfriend and Far From Home. That was hilarious. But yeah, let's get into our final thoughts and ratings here. Devin, what are your final thoughts and ratings for Mean Girls 2024? Because if we don't stop now, we're going to be talking about this all day.
Yeah, final thoughts. This is definitely a fun time at the theaters. Definitely try to go with a full audience because it enhances the experience quite a bit. Everyone gets into it. And the musical elements worked for me. But I can see why, if you don't like musicals, it's going to be an issue. And I'm not sure why it's that polarizing, but that's just kind of how it is. As far as the actual movie goes, it keeps the core story of the original one while adding musical elements as well as modernizing it a little bit with more of the technology and social media side of it that just wasn't there in 2004. They did a good job of that. I'm just glad Tina Fey was able to keep her pen on the paper and not try to have a Mean Girls 2 all over again, where it's a TV movie that no one knows about because of how bad it is, apparently. So as far as this one goes, I'd probably give it like an 81 overall. Like, it's just super solid. I do think the trailer not showing it's musical is an issue that we're currently having, but as far as the actual movie goes, it was a good time.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm actually looking through a lot of the trailers now, and they do show shots from the musical. I mean, I don't have the audio on right now since we're recording, but it does show bits and pieces of the musical. But I don't think, they don't come out and say, oh, a beloved classic, turned into a musical or based off the musical, since this is what it is. But I do agree with you, Devin. I would also give this an 81 out of 100. I really just enjoyed it. I think this is a great way to start out the year of 2024. But I do agree, if you don't like musicals, it's probably going to be, it's going to be a bit of a tough sell, but I enjoy the story so freaking much that, like, even if it wasn't, I probably would have been a little bit lower, but it's like the musical aspect gives it new life. And like you said, bringing North Shore High into the new age really does add to that. So it's like, the original is fantastic. It will always have a place in both of our hearts, like 100%. But I think this is a well-deserved and should be a well-praised remake that, it does the same thing, but it finds its own identity with its messaging, going a little bit deeper, adding those nuanced details to this version. And like you said, Tina Fey coming back to write it. I don't think this would have worked if she did not come back to write it, because it shows how much she cares, because she wrote the book. So it's like, of course, she's going to come back. But if this, I absolutely brilliantly written. Gotta love it.
I know you love that iCarly joke.
I did. I was going to bring that up. Oh my gosh, dude. I was like, yeah. Because oh my gosh. What is his name? The guy who plays Damian.
Jaquel Spivey.
Yes, Jaquel Spivey. Like, when he's doing that during the talent show, I was like, are those the lyrics to iCarly? And then oh my gosh, that was great. That was great. Highlights of the movie for me. Absolutely loved it. Thank you for reminding me that, because I'm almost surprised you forgot. I know. And I was going to talk about it, but I didn't want us to talk too much prior to us actually recording. But, just something new I'm trying out, to where it's we can have more of a organic conversation. But an 81 out of 100 from Devin and myself. So that means that the official podcast score for Mean Girls, the remake, or Mean Girls, quote unquote, 2024 is an 81 out of 100. So that does conclude today's episode. If you like what you heard on today's episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. And make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Film Optics. That is Optics with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover in need, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optics podcast. Now, let's take a sneak peek at what is coming up next for the rest of the year. And I'm blanking, actually. Oh, no. We're going to be covering Echo as soon as Devin finishes.
Echo.
So Devin and I are going to be covering all 5 episodes of Echo. It's going to be a spoiler review of Echo now that all 5 episodes are out. If you want to check out our spoiler-free review of Echo, which I kind of rode solo, and just did a episode 1 through 3 spoiler-free review. I was sent the first 3 episodes. Definitely go check that out if you just want to get a taste of what the show is for. So we're definitely going to be covering that. There's a few other movies coming out this year. I don't have all of them in front of me right now, but that is at least one thing that you'll be looking forward to. And then, you can follow us on all the other social media garbage stuff that I mentioned earlier to know what is coming up next on the show. And as far as new review releases, you can check out the Iron Claw review that Devin and I did literally New Year's Eve of 2023. And you can also check out our Marvel's What If Season 2 review and our Poor Things review, which we reviewed last year. So those are just a few things that you can listen to now on the podcast. We've got a bunch of other episodes out there for you guys to listen to as well. But thank you all for listening. And if you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay connected with us by following us again on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, all that social media garbage for the latest updates. That was Devin, and I'm Christian signing off. And remember, on Wednesdays, we wear pink. And life is like a movie. So go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Get in, losers.